I'm gonna give you 5 must-have rod and reels. It's a question that I get asked all the time, all across the country. Hey, what do I need to throw on this? Or what rod action do I need for this? I'm gonna break it down to 5 rod and reels that if I only had to have 5, I could fish anywhere across the country and it would be the right setups for the right bait. Rod number 1 is a 7'1" medium heavy rod. This is gonna be the workhorse. This is gonna be the one that is gonna be super versatile for you in a lot of situations. Vibrating jigs, spinner bait, swim jig, football jig, casting a worm, finesse jig. The list goes on and on what this rod right here will do. There's a fish right there. What makes this rod good is the tip versus the backbone ratio. You can see when I'm pulling on that thing, I've got a lot more backbone, you know, all the way down in there, but still it's got a good tip on it, you know, to where I don't pull that bait out of the fish's mouth when I get a bite. All right, looky there, that's a good one. That's a good one right there. When I'm using those spinner baits, those vibrating jigs, I'm gonna have it a 6/8 to 1 gear ratio reel. If I change it over and I'm using a football jig or a swim jig or something like that, you could use an 8/3 to 1 gear ratio reel. It's very, very versatile in all your applications for fishing, and it's one you've got to have. A rod you got to have in your arsenal is a 6'9" medium action rod. This rod right here is going to be the rod that I use for my topwater, my jerk bait, any of those things. You know, when I say topwater, that could be a walking bait, a popping bait, a choppo, a buzz bait. You know, then in my jerk bait world, you know, any of the jerk baits. So on the jerk bait side of things, I'm going to have fluorocarbon like I do right here. On the topwater side of things, I'm going to have braid on it. When you look at it, look how much more of that rod bends. It's all the way down into it. It's got a really light tip on it. Right there, that is a perfect rod for throwing a jerk bait, throwing a topwater, anything along those lines. That is the kind of action that I want in that rod. This 6'9" is the right length, the right action for all those applications that I'm going to use that for, and it's got to be one that's going to be in your top 5 because you're going to run across instances where you need those baits to be able to have a successful day on the water. Rod number 3, you've got to have a crankbait rod in your arsenal. This is the Bass Pro Cranking Stick. It's a 7-foot medium heavy rod. I love this rod. I've got a lot of them. I use it for a lot of different cranking applications. What's important about a crankbait rod is the makeup of it. You know, this rod's got some backbone to it, but yet it's got a lot of tip to it. This is important to keep from pulling these smaller hooks out. You know, with a crankbait, you've got little bitty hooks, so it's important to have a rod that doesn't pull those hooks out of the fish's mouth and you don't lose the fish, they don't throw the bait. Oh, so much fun. This is gonna be your rod to throw with anything with a bill on it or something with treble hooks on it because of the composite action. Very, very important how the rod bends. You don't lose a lot of fish. It loads up to really launch your bait. Now with the reel, a 6/8 to 1. If you had to choose, you know, just what reel to have on this, you always want to have that 6/8 to 1 reel. It's just a little bit slower than the 8/3 to 1. It'll get you some more bites. Love it, I love it, I love it. Yes. Rod number 4. This rod right here is a must-have. You've got to have this rod in your arsenal. It's a 7.3 carbon light heavy. It's stiff. I'm pulling on that thing hard. It's got just a little bit of tip right there, but man, it has got some backbone to it. You know, I can really drive a hook home with it. I can throw bigger baits on it. You know, right here I've got a 1/2 ounce jig, something I can flip around stumps, you know, flip around docks. It's gonna be perfect for throwing a frog, throwing a swim jig, throwing a big 1 ounce jig, you know, in deep grass. All those scenarios have this one with an 8/3 to 1 gear ratio reel. This rod also right here, this is the rod that I used to win the Bassmaster Classic and had a finesse jig. I had it on 12-pound test on this rod, you know, in the Bassmaster Classic. So it's just a very, very versatile rod that I use. It's always in my applications. Lastly, you've got to have a spinning rod in your setup. You know, and for me, the 6'9" medium action right here is a workhorse. It will cover all my spinning rod applications. Drop shotting, throwing a wacky rig, throwing little swim baits, little grubs, those kinds of things. This 6'9" medium action is perfect For all those things, it'll work really well. Spinning rod right there is perfect. It's just, man, it's just got the right action for it. You know, setting a drop shot, you know, you got quite a bit of tip yet, you got some good backbone up in there. Also, when you cast something, you know, how a rod loads up, it does all the work for me in throwing that bait. That rod loads up kind of like a slingshot, and it slings that bait out there. That's one other aspect that's really important. I've got it paired up with a size 2 spinning reel. It's a 6.0 gear ratio reel, 11 bearings, just a really good reel, really good setup, balanced really, really well. This setup, this action, in my opinion, is perfect for everything. I use this rod, I've got like 6 of these in my boat. It's a very, very good rod. So if you just had to pick one spinning rod, this is the one I would pick for everything. It will get the job done. It's got the perfect action for everything I need to throw when I go to throw in a spinning rod. So that is my 5 rods that I use. Now, granted, yes, there's other rods out there, but I tried to narrow it down to 5. Those are my 5 choices that I know will work anywhere I go.